Hello, everybody. Good morning. It is Saturday baseball time. I will check in with the chat room and get my stuff straight. Perhaps not. How's everybody today? Lenny made me start at 10, but I was going to start at 11 because our friends, the Happy Hour Social Club, they will be on at noon today celebrating the 1-year anniversary of their show, the Happy Hour Social Club podcast. They're also going to be the grand reopening of the brand new Ironclad Martial Arts facility that is in Massachusetts. I will say Wilmington, Massachusetts. And they will be on air at noon. So that will be right here in the chat room at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. And I'll talk baseball for about the next hour or so. Good morning, Shaman. Oh, you came and you disappeared. But anyway, it's nice to see you. Nice to see you, Taco. Hopefully you're celebrating with the rest of the guys today. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me in the chat room. It looks like it's working good. So anyway, good morning, Shaman. Nice to see you. Let's talk about Justin Turner. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but I can say for sure the one thing that strikes me with MLB and Rob Manfred as commissioner is that he is so he's just not straight across the board when it comes to punishments and when it comes to breaking the rules and he's not specific when it comes to the rules to begin with, but they were pretty specific about the rules for COVID. The Dodgers made it through the entire shortened season without having any problems with COVID. And the reason that they were able to do that is because the people followed protocol. And I mean, mind you, it was like 110 pages of ridiculous protocol. But they maintained that all season long. And I feel like, I mean, I don't want to be Debbie Downer and be like, Justin Turner shouldn't have been out on the field, taking pictures with his wife and celebrating. He's been looking forward to this opportunity like his entire life. And so, who could blame him for wanting to go out and take a picture with his wife? He says he just wanted to go out there and take a picture with his wife on the field. But he also, of course, he comes out with an apology the same day that Rob Manfred issued his statements. There was 3 statements put out yesterday. 3, the one by somebody in charge at Dodgers, and then one by Justin Turner and one by Rob Manfred. And we're going to go through this Rob Manfred one. I just find it just ridiculous because he is so horrible at my opinion of Rob Manfred is that he might be worse than the last guy. He just brushes everything under the rug. He would love nothing more than to just make things go away. And so he does the bare minimum that he has to do to make things go away. And yesterday it felt like he was basically Justin Turner's a free agent right now. And obviously he's not going to suffer any punishment. So it's not going to affect his ability to sign with the team or, the ability for a team to want to sign him. It's not going to change anything there. But he sounded like Justin Turner's agent yesterday. I love Justin Turner, and I think that obviously his wife and him have done great things in LA. The Mets were so stupid to let him go, but he didn't play that well this year, so I won't be drafting him on my fantasy team in next season. He used to qualify at all kinds of positions. Now he only qualifies at one position, so that it hurts his fantasy value. But this has nothing to do with fantasy, really. This is more about just being consistent with the rules and the punishments that you hand out. Lenny brought up the other day about Pete Rose, and it's like, what the hell? Pete Rose has done, does he not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Does he not deserve to have a place at the baseball table anymore when he's obviously that's the love of his life, baseball, and he has apologized. And why I just think that if you're going to, put enact punishments, they should be across the board. They should be similar to each other. Like Rob Manfred, when he first became commissioner, he said that he was going to look into allowing Pete Rose back into the game. And I don't remember the exact details, but again, I think they found more evidence of Pete Rose gambling. Although they've never found any evidence that he gambled against his team. And the entire Major League Baseball is a bunch of gamblers now. They're all advertising on FanDuel. They're all advertising DraftKings. They're like the number one, literally, I mean, they don't have partnerships with them anymore, but they did at one point. And the only reason they stopped doing it was because it caused them to look bad. It looks bad. I mean, when the owners are investing in gambling websites, then it makes it look bad. But so here's a guy that was gambling maybe the entire time. People break rules all the time. Punish them, sure, but really you're gonna not ever let him back in baseball again? It's wrong. Like yesterday, and obviously there's no precedent set for the punishments that you should give out and hand out to players for breaking coronavirus protocol, right? I mean, there's no precedent for this. So, okay, fine, but there kind of is. We had, I mean, when they first started the season, the rules did not say specifically that players couldn't go to the bar, they couldn't go to the casino, like they couldn't do these things. It just was pretty vague about not having more than 3 people together at a time. So after this whole ordeal with Plesac and Clevenger, and I forget who else was there, but they changed the rules. Then they were like, no going to casino, no going to bars. Obviously, we have to spell this out for you, but you will be punished if you get caught doing these things. And Plesac never apologized. He never got in trouble by MLB. He got in trouble by Cleveland, who sent him home, right? They sent him home. Somebody dropped him in fantasy. I picked him up, and I was so pleased about that. When I heard I didn't pick him up until I knew he was coming back, but he was on the free, he was on the waiver wire. And is what Justin Turner did any worse or better than what Zach Plesac did, or Clevenger did, or the whole entire Florida Marlins team did, or the Cardinals, or the Phillies, or whoever else? Whatever it is, nobody got punished, really. They had their games postponed, but the whole playoffs were in a bubble. And so the fact that Justin Turner even got COVID to begin with should raise questions, right? Now there are 5 other people in the Dodgers organization that have tested positive for COVID. And there was while he was down on the field that day, he did take a picture with his wife, but he also sat down with his team, took his mask off. There was other people's family members out on the field. And so we're going to kind of break this down just a little bit. I feel like it needs to be broken down because Manfred is just a loser at his job. Seriously, I know I'm harsh, but he's a loser at his job. I guess he's not a loser at his job. He's doing exactly what the ownership wants him to do, which is brush things under the table and forget about it. And, or sweep under the rug, So he says, as often is the case, our investigation revealed additional relevant information that, while not exonerating Mr. Turner from responsibility for his conduct, helps to put into context why he chose to leave the isolation room and return to the field. Like, for real, if you're out drunk driving and you kill somebody, I don't really care why you did it. I don't care about why you did it. Like, I don't understand why there should be any context here whatsoever. Either you broke the rules or you didn't. When somebody came out on the field to tell you to go back away, like to get back in isolation, you refuse to allow that. Okay, that's a problem. He says, first, Mr. Turner's teammates actively encouraged him to leave the isolation room and return to the field for a photograph. How do they actively encourage you when they're not even with you, or are they on the phone with you? I doubt it, because they're all trying to win a World Series right now. I don't think there was a lot of time spent on communicating with Justin Turner about whether or not he should come onto the field. That's just me. Many teammates felt that they had already been exposed to Mr. Turner and were prepared to tolerate the additional risk. Okay, that's fine. but many is not all. And there was a pregnant lady out there. I know that for sure. Many were willing to tolerate, but what about the ones that weren't? Or what about the ones that said that they were okay with it, but they actually weren't at the, but didn't want to like stir things up, right? So second, Mr. Turner believes that he received permission from at least one Dodgers employee to return to the field to participate in a photograph. Okay, that he says, although Mr. Turner's belief may have been the product of a miscommunication, at least two Dodgers employees said nothing to Mr. Turner as he made his way to the field. Okay, which they admitted may have created the impression that his conduct was acceptable. It's like, it just reminds me of, like, how like when you're a kid or you have kids and they're young and they're trying to get away with something that they know they're not supposed to be doing, and they're like just slowly doing it in front of you in the hopes that you don't say anything. And if you don't say anything, then that's like to them, that's your permission to do it, right? That's just what I picture in my head when I read this. Second, third, we're going to third. During the somewhat chaotic situation on the field, Mr. Turner was incorrectly told by an unidentified person. Okay, here we go with the anonymous sources. An unidentified person that other players had tested positive, creating the impression in Mr. Turner's mind that he was being singled out for isolation. He's like, well, why me? Why just me? If other people have coronavirus, why am I the only one? I don't think Justin Turner really like thought about it that much. And I would be just so much happier with just I fucked up. Okay, just write it on Twitter. It's short enough for a tweet. I fucked up. I was super excited to win a World Series that I've been waiting for my entire life, and I fucked up by not thinking about other people when I went on the field and took my mask off and stayed down there and sat next to people and hugged people and did all that. I fucked up. It's super easy. It's not that easy, but you know what I mean? Like, why do I have to have like his letter that he said, all these blah blah blahs? It's like you're giving me context. Obviously, we know that you were happy to win the World Series. We're obviously, everybody would be happy. Everybody would be super excited, and most people would probably want to be out on the field too with the rest of the team. And by all means, that's why it shouldn't be so hard to just say that you messed up. So then he says that Major League Baseball could have handled the situation more effectively. So in a sense, Major League Baseball is taking some of the responsibility because they didn't send him to the hotel right away. They didn't have some kind of security guard, like specifically watching him to make sure. Okay, it says, for example, a security person should have been assigned to monitor Mr. Turner when he was asked to isolate. A security guard? Okay. And Mr. Turner should have been transported from the stadium to the hotel more promptly. That would have sucked. That would have really sucked. How are you going to tell a guy that he has to go to the hotel in Game 7, okay, or whatever game it was? It was either Game 6 or 7, but are you kidding me? You're going to tell this guy that he has to go back to the hotel even though there's a spot for him to isolate there. Okay, but for some reason, this guy Manfred is like totally he's like Justin Turner's agent right now. He's talking about how he does so much for the community. He's a great clubhouse guy. Like, everybody likes him. Him and his wife have a charity that they do. What? So that gives you leniency in case you want to break the rules. The fact that you do nice things and you're a good clubhouse guy, that the team likes you, and that they, that you've done so much for the team that they are going to just forget about this one. By all accounts, Justin is a leader in the clubhouse, a contributor to his community, and a responsible person who was instrumental in the Dodgers diligently following the health protocol all season long. Okay, so I don't drink and drive 99% of the time, but when I do, then all the times that I didn't should make up for the fact that I did. We've all made mistakes as we navigate these unprecedented challenges and have tried to learn from those mistakes so they are not repeated. With this in mind, I'm closing this matter by applauding Justin. He's not only closing the matter, but he's closing it by applauding Justin Turner for accepting responsibility, apologizing, and making a commitment to set a positive example going forward. Okay? It's not just the first time too. Like Aroldis Chapman got in trouble when he was first, like right before he got like right before he signed with the Yankees. Aroldis Chapman was in trouble for having a domestic dispute with his girlfriend, and she wasn't pregnant at the time, but she ended up getting pregnant. She had his baby. I think they're still together, and I'm not positive of that, but I think they did stay together. But the whole thing, it was really a horrible situation for Aroldis Chapman because, first of all, he didn't go to jail that night. And if there would have been any kind of markings on her, he's huge. I mean, you've seen Aroldis Chapman and how big he is. He didn't go to jail. There was at least 15 police officers that came to that house that night for this domestic dispute that they had when he shot his gun off outside. He shot his gun outside in a non-attached garage that was in his backyard. So it was on his property, and he actually wasn't breaking the law, or he would have went to jail that night because the gun was registered in his name. He didn't shoot it at anybody. I mean, it's a stupid thing to do, to shoot your gun because you're pissed off at your girl. Well, what, she grabbed his phone when he was in the bathroom, and she started looking through his phone, and she saw that he was being texted by other women. So she got all pissed off and like started confronting him about it. They were drinking all day. It was 4th of July, and like the situation. I mean, how many of you guys have ever had a domestic? I mean, Lenny and I have had fights where I'm surprised the cop hasn't come. Okay, but of course, if they would have seen any indication that she was being beaten or that she was being abused, they would have taken him to jail. There's no doubt about it. He did not go to jail. They dropped the court case against him. They didn't charge him with anything, and he gets suspended for like 35 games. I'm sorry, but that's not okay. It's different if you're actually like in a domestic dispute with your girl or whatever, and you're like manhandling her and stuff, but they didn't give him a fair anything. Just because the cops got called, he literally, his reputation was ruined. He's lucky that the Yankees took a chance on him, but they didn't have to pay him as much as they would have had to pay him if he didn't get into a fight with his girl. It's total bullshit. I don't understand, because it definitely tarnishes his reputation. Some players get suspended for like 70 games. Some players get suspended for 30 games. Some players don't get suspended at all. Like, so some players, some like the Red Sox, no offense against the Red Sox. I'm a big fan of the Red Sox, but when the Red Sox and the Yankees, they were investigating the cheating, right? It was actually that they were investigating the Yankees first. And then while they were investigating the Yankees told on the Red Sox. So they started investigating the Red Sox. They found out that the Red Sox were using their Apple Watches to get relay signals from, or signs from, the video replay room to the dugout. The punishment, because Rob Manfred didn't want to make a big scene about it, right? You could say that lack of punishment led to the Astros doing what they did, because it was right before that. He did send out a memo to all the teams to say, this is what, the Red Sox, Yankees, whatever. If we catch you doing this, here's your warning. The punishments are going to go from the top down. But the punishment was like a donation to the charity of Rob Manfred's choice, right? We don't know what charity that was, but seriously, that's the punishment? A donation to the charity of his choice? Get for real? I just think that the punishments should be uniform. And yes, we don't have precedent for the Justin Turner thing. No, we don't have precedent for that. But come on, can you be a little bit like, you shouldn't be closing it out while acknowledging what a great person Justin Turner is for what he did. I beat you up daily. No, I don't. I don't beat you up daily. Hi, Eddie. Nice to see you. Pete Rose did the cardinal sin of gambling on his own team. Right. He did gamble on his own team. That the team would win, though. Does that make a difference to you? Or, I mean, it's fine to have your opinion about this. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way you do. I just think that, like, this guy, his stats speak for themselves, and there is no person in the world that could convince me that he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame for what he did. I don't know if it would make a difference if I found out that he was betting against his team. I guess it would make a difference. I really do think it would make a difference, because that means that he's not playing as hard as he should have. But looking at his stats, who could ever say that he didn't play less than 100% every single time he was out there? I think his stats say that he wasn't betting on his against his own team. Shaman, are you here? So what rule? Okay, Justin Turner's a douchebag. God, you're on a roll today, Shaman. You're on a roll, dude. Okay, you're on a roll. Let me check this Facebook chat too. I'm learning how to. Yay, I see Lenny. Let me try. Hello. Oh, look, I'm two people. Okay. So I don't beat you up daily, but that's okay. Let's move on from Justin Turner. I think Pete Rose should be allowed in the Hall of Fame. That's just my opinion. But we will move on for that. Totally. Let's see what else. The MLB owners, so they're like willing to do the universal DH for the players is what they're saying, but they want something in return. And what they want in return, of course, is expanded playoffs. And it's just so ridiculous. The players aren't going to go for that because they already know that the universal DH benefits both teams and players. And the expanded playoffs really doesn't benefit the players whatsoever unless they get paid extra money, which they really don't. They actually get paid a lot of times less money than they do in the normal part of the season. And the owners, obviously, that's where they make all of their money, which we found out very clearly during the negotiations this year with COVID coming into play, that the owners were like adamant that they have to get to the playoffs. Like the playoffs is where they make the most money. It's where they have the deals with the TV stations and all this. So they're trying to utilize, I mean, I guess this would be something like, when you're trying to negotiate, you start out lowball a little bit and then you work up from there, but they better do a little bit better than that. The players definitely would like 14 teams instead of 16 teams, which I think is absolutely acceptable from the owner's perspective. But Alex Cora is back with the Red Sox, 2-year contract. There's a lot of differing opinions and attitudes about this idea, but for the most part, the Red Sox players definitely are happy about it. They've been trying to get him back since he was fired. I mean, he didn't get fired per se. He resigned in the best interest of the team and whatever, but he was punished by MLB for a year. He couldn't talk to anybody until after the last game of the World Series, in which it was like immediate that the Red Sox were on the phone with him saying they want you to come back. Well, I don't know if they expect to get like the same results that they did in 2018, but you can't really when you don't have any of the best players that you did. So it'll be interesting to see what Cora can do with the team that has no pitching, like literally no pitching, except for like Martin Perez. I think he's the only starter that made more than 10 starts last year. He's the only one, and he actually didn't have a bad season, to be honest with you. But Eduardo Rodriguez had COVID, and he's got some it says here, the Red Sox had 16 different pitchers make at least one start over the 60-game season, and only one starter made more than 10 starts. That was Martin Perez. Eduardo Rodriguez has some serious, leftover symptoms of COVID. He has COVID-19 related myocarditis. Rodriguez is being monitored closely by the Red Sox medical staff, but nobody really knows how that's going to pan out for next year. We don't really know enough about COVID and its long-term effects yet to really say how it's going to be handled or how it needs to be handled. But there will definitely be a delicate balance between, getting him ready for the season and not overworking him back. They could really use some pitching, I'll tell you that. They have a rookie named Tanner Houck. I think that's how you say his name. He had 3 good starts at the end of the season, which none of us were paying attention to, I don't think, unless you're a diehard Red Sox fan, and then you still might not have been paying that much attention with all the sports going on at the same time. But he's a rookie, so you can only put so much real faith into a rookie. and we'll probably see ups and downs like with any other rookie. The Red Sox have always had a problem. Not always, but as long as I've been watching baseball, I've never seen them be able to really develop pitching very well. They've struggled with developing their pitching from the minor league system on up. I guess if you compared them to Atlanta or Oakland, they are so far behind in the pitcher development world. Either they are behind or they're just get unlucky because they haven't been able to really produce any good pitching from youngster. Let's see. I think I remember that maybe was Jonathan Papelbon one of their youngsters. Like there was a couple that Clay Buchholz maybe. Anyway, what are they going to do about their closer? They traded Brandon Workman. They have Matt Barnes, and they also have Darwinzon Hernandez, who I think is worthy of taking a look at in fantasy for next year. He's definitely closer material, and I think they've been banking on him being like the closer of the future for the last couple of years. So he's ready to be at the major league level. And then we look at the Mets, and so I don't know. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody's talking to me in the chat room. That's really annoying. It's not annoying. It's just, hello. Oh, look. I see someone on Facebook. Hi, in Facebook. Good. At least you guys are talking to me in Facebook. Sandy Alderson. As soon as the sale was final to Steve Cohen, Sandy Alderson gets rid of Waganen and Omar Minaya and a couple other front office people. And is that much of a surprise? No, not really. Like the Mets are the most exciting team in baseball right now. I don't know. I can't imagine arguing with that because they're the ones with the money, because Steve Cohen didn't get screwed financially because he didn't own the Mets at the time, but he comes into a Mets team ready to spend money. We're waiting for like the first big player acquisition to come. And there's lots of talk about JT Realmuto. There's talk about perhaps Trevor Bauer going to the Mets. I was listening to his agent, Rachel Luba, she was on the fan WFAN radio here, and she was talking. They asked her about how would he get along with Garrett Cole? Is that a possibility? And me, I'm like, whoopee. Him and Garrett Cole don't get along, so there's no way that Trevor Bauer is going to become a Yankee. And that makes me so happy to have that as like a mental protection against the idea that Bauer is going to be a Yankee. But she was like, that was 10 years ago. They're both from they're both UCLA, and I'm sure that they could figure out a way to get along now. That was a long time ago. I mean, when you're young and you're young and you fight with people, you don't like hold it against them for the rest of your life. And of course, she's trying to sell Bauer to the highest bidder. And Bauer is talking about signing with the team that the fans are the biggest, like which team's fans follow him the most on Instagram, and would he choose his team based on that? Well, I mean, first of all, Bauer promised that he was only going to sign 1-year contracts, and I'm holding him to that because I think that he will get paid about $30 million for 1 year, and I definitely think that even in these harsh times, financially, even in these harsh times, he could still get paid $30 million. New York happens to be, he doesn't say Mets or Yankees. He just puts New York on there. It's 2% of his Instagram followers, but there's no other place that has more than 2%. The other one that's 2%, I believe, is it's either Cleveland or Cincinnati. I'm not sure which one it is, but either way, the New York fans are following him on Instagram more than any other team. I just pray it's the Mets, and the Mets will probably be willing to give him more money. But do the Mets want to invest 1 year when they don't, are they ready to win like right now? I think they'd be more inclined to signing him for like 3 years. Hi, Douglas. Nice to see you. Very nice to see you. Okay. Thanks for coming in. You heard me bitching about nobody talking to me. So George Springer, JT Realmuto, they're talking about these two a lot. George Springer, I think would be an excellent ad. So JT Realmuto too. By the way, JT Realmuto did say that he's not that high on playing in New York. I don't know if it's because of the market that's just really in the spotlight, or if it's because he loves it in Philly. Maybe he's just comfortable there, but he definitely said that he would probably rather stay in Philly. That, those things. I was reading the New York Post today. They were talking about how, this should just be taken with a grain of salt. And why wouldn't you talk to the guy? Even if he does stay in Philly, at least you go talk to him, take him to lunch, do something, at least tell him that you're interested so you can really get a feel for how much he dislikes New York. George Springer clearly likes the idea of joining the Mets, it says, and he looks like he'd be a great fit. Great profile, great background, I guess. Championship background, at least. Okay. And of course, Trevor Bauer did reject the offer. That was probably expected. And Rachel Luba did say that he likes high profile places. He wants to be in a big market. She's talking about how he builds his brand and all this stuff. They're really working on the media company and like building the brand of baseball, really. But mostly, I just think, can you imagine with Trevor Bauer and DeGrom on the same rotation? It would be a wonderful sight to see. And if they add just one or two offensive players to replace the loser Cespedes and some other loser on their team, then it would be wonderful. And they all fit there. They all fit. Even Lindor fits on this team. And the Indians have made it very clear that they're ready to trade Lindor. He's only got 1 year left on his contract before he becomes a free agent. And he's going to be – they're talking about trading him before the season starts. So it will be one full season with Lindor on whatever team he gets traded to. Would it be a team that expects to they either have to be ready to win this year, or they have to be willing to, in the future, sign an extension, a long-term extension worth like $300 billion. And there's only a few teams that are even willing to do that anymore. The Yankees, I don't think the Red Sox are, because they're finally, I don't even know if they're out of financial trouble. The Red Sox are still paying people like Manny Ramirez and stuff. The Red Sox are paying people, that haven't been on their team in years. So it makes you wonder, last year the Red Sox were not willing to keep Mookie Betts. They were not willing to spend any money. They were not willing to address their bullpen for the last couple seasons, because they're still looking at like the second or third highest payroll in baseball, and no way out of that hole for the foreseeable future. I'm not really sure how it looks going into this season, but I highly doubt they're going to be trading for a guy like Lindor when they just got rid of Mookie. So we'll see. But the Mets could really use a catcher. They decided not to give Wilson Ramos the qualifying offer. And so now they have just a couple of inexperienced catchers on their 40-man roster. But they could also go after a guy like James McCann, who's 30 years old, but he's still very good. Anybody that had him in fantasy, or anybody that picked him up this year in fantasy, really knows firsthand that James McCann is absolutely useful as a catcher in both real life and fantasy. Maybe not an everyday catcher, but he's a lot cheaper than Realmuto. The Mets have had problems. Like, they haven't had a real catcher, solid, like long-term or even short-term really catcher since Piazza. And I think that was like, he's been gone since 2005 or something like that. But they haven't been able to figure it out. I remember one year, it was probably like, I would say about 2012 or 2011. It was like the Mets just kept investing in catchers. They drafting catchers. They were trading for catchers. They had like 5 catchers at one time on the Mets. It was definitely like around 2012 about, or yeah, like right around there. So anyway, none of those people worked out. And For JT Realmuto, he's got excellent numbers. You know, he's a 5-tool catcher, which is very hard to come by. And him and Mike Trout and Yelich are the only ones that averaged a sprint speed of 28 feet per second, as well as an average exit velocity of 88 miles per hour with at least 300 plate appearances in every year since 2015. And except for obviously 2020, where they used 100 plate appearances as the bar. But it's only Mike Trout, Yelich, and JT Realmuto. And finding a catcher with fast legs is, when was the last time there was a catcher with fast legs? We're going to be talking about like 2005 again, or 1995 or something, because you just don't see these qualities in a catcher. He's definitely a 5-tool player, and he is good behind the plate. He's good defensively. Like, the Yankees would probably love to have him. The Yankees have a problem with Gary Sanchez, who in 2017 was like the catcher of the future. Offensively, they were he was like the best. I can't remember if he's a lefty or not, but he was like the next best thing. He was the catcher of the future. He was the hitting offensive. Nobody cared about how bad his defense was, because he was excellent. It was him, Judge, and Stanton, right? The three of them were going to be like the most home runs in baseball by far. And Gary Sanchez just hasn't lived up to it. I don't know if it's his work habits or if it's just the fact that he's not, I don't know what it is. Okay. Maybe it's just he doesn't have the talent, but defensively is not ever going to keep him in the game. Defense, he's not a good pitch framer. He's not a good defensive catcher. He's not good at throwing batters or runners out. And right now he's not hitting like he even deserves to be in the major leagues. He's batting under 200. So it's like, what do? They have an option. They could either decide to, I think that, let's see. Let me see here. He signed with the Yankees at 16 in 2009, and they spent a lot of time developing him, but it's not working. Okay. It's not working. They also have Higa Shioka. He's 30 years old, but he's the one that pretty much replaced Gary Sanchez in the late part of the season this last year. Do they think of him as an everyday catcher, or are they going to need to keep Sanchez around? So they said that he was constantly checking the information on his wristband and attempting to feel comfortable kicking a leg out in order to get lower strikes by framing pitches better. It just didn't work out very good. And then they also have DJ LeMahieu for the Yankees. The Yankees' second baseman. He won his second straight Silver Slugger Award on Thursday night. He's one of 3 finalists for the AL MVP. Did they already give out the AL MVP? I thought Abreu got it. But maybe these notes were from a couple days ago. Anyway, DJ LeMahieu led the majors. He had a 364 batting average, and the American League, he led the American League with a 1.011 OPS. He had 10 home runs and 27 RBIs. He's 32, though. Okay. He got a second batting title. So he's a free agent, but there is a strong chance that the Yankees decide to keep him. I don't see why they wouldn't. They would be stupid to not. But then if they did, they probably wouldn't be as prone to getting Lindor. Lindor is he's going somewhere before the season starts. Lindor batted .258 this past season. Cody Bellinger hit .239, and Christian Yelich batted .205. I have a real problem with Christian Yelich. The other two I'm not so worried about, but I think I've said this before, that Yelich just really bothers me because I feel like he's hurt, or he's playing hurt. He was playing hurt. Does that mean that, like, now he's going to have the whole winter to rest and he's going to be healthy by next season? Maybe. That could be true, but nobody's giving me any kind of good reasoning behind the fact that you go from a 320 batter to a 205 batter just like that, and your strikeouts jump from like 10% to like 30%. And I might be exaggerating because I don't have the numbers up in front of me, but it's a huge difference. And when there's not a good explanation, like Christian Yelich was hurt, or he was battling pneumonia, or he got COVID, or anything, just anything. But I haven't seen anything, and it bothers me that there's no explanation. So I'm just, I have a problem with that. Like for Lindor and Cody Bellinger, I feel like both of them kind of turned it on towards the end, that they were playing fine to end the season. And even though Cody Bellinger hit 239, he ended up having a pretty, I mean, overall, his numbers were, he was still hitting home runs. He was still, running the bases. He was still doing his thing, but Yelich was not doing his thing. And I just refuse to spend a first round pick on a guy that I don't have any explanation of why he stopped hitting. Just random. Okay. So Lindor, from 2015 to 2020, Lindor tallied a total of 28.4 wins above replacement, according to Baseball Reference, and that ranks him 6th in all of Major League Baseball during that juncture, behind these Fab Five: Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, and Manny Machado. And he's the only shortstop, I guess Manny Machado, but he's, to do that I don't know. Lindor is very valuable, and just everybody loves Lindor. He's got great energy. He's going to be great addition to whoever decides to fork out the money. But see, you don't have to fork out money right now. You just have to fork out like a rookie or two, or maybe even two. I don't really know how bad the Cleveland Indians want to get rid of him, but they want to get something for him before his contract runs out. They're not signing him. So they're looking to get a couple of youngsters, right? So take a couple youngsters, ship them off to Cleveland, and now you have Lindor. And if you choose not to re-sign him, you don't have to re-sign him. You don't have to commit to giving the $300 million extension, but that's what he's going to eventually get, unless he gets hurt or something crazy happens, like the country gets hit by an asteroid or something, or who knows what could happen. Okay. It will be so nice to get finished with 2020. I could tell you that it will be just so, this New Year's will be unlike any other New Year's. I think everybody, for whatever reason, okay, was going to be just, thank God 2020 is over. I don't really plan on any kind of, first of all, I do plan on fans being in the stadiums next season. I do not mentally, I do not prepare myself that we're going to enter baseball in March or April 1st. I think April Fool's Day is, oh God, April Fool's Day is the first day of baseball. I prepare mentally that there is going to be a full season, that there's going to be people in the stadiums, people in the ballparks. We're not going to have to worry about the COVID rules anymore, because if we already have treatments, okay, most of the people, 99% of the people are fine when they get COVID, because we have different types of treatments for different stages in the game or whatever. There's a lot less people dying as compared to what was dying 6 months ago. And yes, there's a lot of cases, but not very many people are dying. I also believe the president when he says that a vaccine is going to come out in the near future. And I understand why people wouldn't, whatever, but I do. And so when I think about baseball going forward, I can't wait to go to Citi Field. I can't wait to go take the train to Citi Field. They have the best food at Citi Field of any ballpark that I've been to, by far. Like, their food is amazing. They have ribs, they have pastrami, they have garlic fries, they have everything. And so I'm looking forward to that, and sitting up there in the big beer deck and just getting my baseball on, like enjoying a game of baseball. So, but I understand, like, there are people that just don't see baseball having completely going back to normal after this season, or like the beginning of next season, starting it just normal, just pretending like it never happened. Wouldn't that be nice? Just forget about it, the whole thing. That would be so nice. Anyway, let me check in with the chat room. COVID out of control, country getting lazy. Yes, I eat all of this. I eat all of the food. One night, Lenny and I were driving from Cincinnati to Washington, D.C., and we I really wanted to see Jordan Zimmermann pitching. That was when Jordan Zimmermann was really good that year. He was very good, and he was pitching the very next day. So we left the Cincinnati Reds game after the game at like 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and we started driving to Washington, D.C. And I can't remember how far it is exactly, but it took all night. It was basically like, okay, we're going to arrive in Cincinnati the next morning. We're going to take a shower and go to the game if we really want to get there to see Jordan Zimmermann. But at Cincinnati, they have the best food too. We had so much fun. Like before the game, we had sushi, and like there's a strip of restaurants right outside is it Great American Ballpark? I want to say it's Great American Ballpark. Whatever it is, it's fun at Cincinnati. So they have two kinds of chili, and like there's like chili wars there. One of the chilies is Skyline chili, and the other chili is I can't remember what the other chili is, but it's a big thing. It's a big competition in Cincinnati. So I had to try both chilies. I think I ate 2 chili dogs, a hamburger from it looked like Bob's Big Boy guy, but I don't know what they call it, but it's kind of like a Big Mac looking thing. I had that. We had martinis, margaritas, everything. I ate so much between like noon that day and 10 o'clock at night. I ate everything. And I was like, I never had been so sick. Like the car ride was just a nightmare. I felt so bad. I was laying down in the back like I always do, but my stomach hurt so bad. And that was when I was like, okay, you're too old to do this. Like, you can't do this anymore. You're not 25 anymore. And so that's when I like admitted to myself that you can't eat like you used to. And so now I only eat one chili dog or whatever, but I still will never forget that. And we did make it to Washington, D.C., and we did get to see Jordan Zimmermann that day pitch. And so that was a fun time. But I love baseball park food. And anyway, Lenny. Okay, so anyway, let's talk more baseball real quick. Let's talk about Bauer. We're done with Bauer. We already talked about him enough. I hope he goes to the Mets. I couldn't even be more excited if he goes there. So Dave Dombrowski was talking about, I don't know, somebody at The Athletic interviewed him about, what his plans are and stuff. He's talking about how he is now in Nashville. He has a house being built that's going to be ready in January, and that he's already promised that he would stay in Nashville because they're trying to get an expansion team in Nashville, Tennessee. And so he's promised that he will stay and help work on that. There needs to be money raised and all this stuff. But he was asked about Tony La Russa. And they said in this article, they said that when asked about La Russa, Dave Dombrowski talked for 6 minutes straight and did not even pause. That he had so many nice things to say about La Russa, and the fact that, yes, he's older. He just actually had hip surgery, like hip replacement. And he was talking about how he never felt better. And I know that bad hip is, really hard I don't have it myself, but my mother's about to have hip replacement surgery, and it's debilitating in every way. It gets so bad that, you can't even really do things that you would normally do, and it really hurts the quality of life. Okay. So Dombrowski was talking about how La Russa just did that, and he was on the phone with him, and La Russa was saying that he feels the best that he's had in a long time, and he's ready for this challenge. He also mentioned that La Russa is extremely progressive, that he is not going to turn down information, that he's willing to use analytics, but he also is willing to use his gut in situations, that he's willing to go with his gut, which, I mean, look, if we're going to go by anybody's gut, this guy La Russa, he's been around for ages, and he's got enough experience and been through enough situations where if he's going to take his instincts, that's probably a good thing, but he is willing to rely on his knowledge as well as analytics, use the new things, that the tools that are offered nowadays, and that he, it says that he's willing to take risks, and he's willing, and also, this idea that, okay, he isn't going to be getting along with the young people. Dombrowski said that he that the young people absolutely were like flocked to him. They were, it was like he was a magnet to the young people, that his own children loved Tony La Russa a lot, and that all the players really, they got along great with him. So this idea that he's not going to get along with young players is totally, it's not based on anything really. And Tim Anderson, you know, he basically said that it looks forward to talking to La Russa, and he says he's gonna ask him, how much have you been reading about me? Like, you know, a lot of people been saying that we're not going to get along. And he said, I'm going to ask him, why do you think that people are saying that? I don't know. I kind of like don't really, I feel like it's kind of I don't, we'll see what happens, but I definitely think that from La Russa's side of it, he's going to try. I think that the White Sox players, number one, they're disappointed because their manager Renteria is gone, and they liked him. They succeeded with him, and I think that's bothersome for anybody. I also think that they feel like because he's so old that he's not going to continue to like show, like he's not going to take the team and show progress with the team. Like he's not going to be able to continue to get better. But I disagree. I think that La Russa, you guys, we should all give him a chance because he's been around the game for a long, long time. He's already said that, you know, he changed his mind about the kneeling during the anthem. He said that as long as you believe in something, as long as it comes from a place of passion, and you know, they asked him about what he feels about the teams and players celebrating, because apparently there was questioned. Okay, so I'm not really sure I can't remember the exact situation that happened that they brought up, but there was a situation they brought up. Anyways, he says he doesn't have a problem with players expressing their feelings, celebrating when doing bat flips or whatever, because if it comes from a place of where your heart is, then we will be okay with that. You know, basically, I don't know why you would ever like, when do you act like that when it's not coming from your heart? I don't get, it's just like natural I don't know. Anyway, so he's okay with that. I think he's open-minded. I think he's excited. I think the White Sox are going to be just fine, even if they're disappointed that they didn't get AJ Hinch or whatever. Okay. Still, if AJ Hinch and Alex Cora are allowed back in baseball, then Pete Rose deserves a chance, and Pete Rose deserves to go into the Hall of Fame, and he deserves to be around the game that he spent his entire life loving. Because especially now, like, how are you going to, you're going to exclude a guy for gambling when you're literally advertising gambling all day long on your channel and your radio channels, and you're being supported by gambling as we speak. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I know he broke the rules, and you're allowed to think any way you want on it. It's just my opinion. So Kevin Gausman got a qualifying offer in San Francisco, and everybody's like, what the hell? Why is Kevin Gausman getting an $18 million offer? They like him, obviously. I've been a fan of him. I think that he has talent. Like, I think that he could be a great pitcher. He definitely has the ability to strike out hitters. And he just hasn't ever, I feel like he hasn't really he just hasn't been able to do it for an entire season. But I got a little bit more information and insight on why they signed him, which is that they feel like he's a poor man Zach Wheeler, which I don't know how poor man he is when you're paying him $18.75 million or whatever it is. Zach Wheeler got $118 million for 5 years with Philly. But okay, here's what they say is the similar with Zach Wheeler and Kevin Gausman, that they both strike out about 22.4%. That's Wheeler, and then 22.3% is Gausman. Wheeler throws harder, and StatCast has his velocity in the 94th percentile last season. Gausman does not have a great I mean, it's not that it's not good. It's that it's definitely not in the 94th percentile. It's in the 81st percentile. So not as good. Gausman does have a good split-fingered fastball. That's higher than any of Wheeler's secondary pitches. So I don't know. The Giants, they say, valued Gausman above every free agent pitcher except Trevor Bauer. And other teams also might see him as a superior to Marcus Stroman, even though, like, if you're a fantasy guy, you're just like, I don't think he's better than Marcus Stroman because, well, Marcus Stroman had an ERA that was pretty decent. It was like 3.5 or 3.2 or 3.4. I know there's a big difference between 3.2 and 3.5, but it was right about there. So it was the mid threes. And if you look at Kevin Gausman's ERA, it certainly wasn't, it was probably in the high. I mean, it was, I don't know exactly. I should have put his stats up, but he's been pretty disappointment. He struck out 79 and 59 and 2/3 innings, though. So he definitely, like I said, he can strike out batters. His ERA plus was slightly above league average with the Orioles prior to his subpar 19 season. And so either way, he's going to accept that offer, right? I mean, there's nobody going to pay him more money than that. And he'll have another opportunity to, make his name good before he has to figure out who's going to sign him next year. And he is relatively young, so he still has an opportunity to put it together. And I root for him. I like him. Brad Hand. It's kind of interesting to me that nobody even made an attempt to get Brad Hand off of waivers. Like, no team claimed him, and all they would have had to do is pay his salary. It's not like they would have had to give up any extra money or anything. They were just going to be on the hook for his salary. Okay. Brad Hand, yes, his velocity has dipped. Okay, yes. It's declined from 93.8 to 92.7 and now to 91.4. So, yeah, okay, from 93.8, which whatever, to 91.4. So it's like a couple miles an hour. And every year going forward, you can expect it to drop another couple miles per hour. That's the way that aging works. But he still, even at age 30, he had a 1.37 ERA, okay, in 19 and 2/3 innings in August and September. He struck out 25 and walked only 3. So some pitchers actually, the velocity drop is going to happen, but it's how you deal with it. What separates the men from the boys? How do you deal with your velocity drop? Do you use your secondary pitches more? Do you figure out a way to throw it, put more movement on the ball, or use different pitches? Do you figure out a way to make it work for you? That's the question. But another good thing about Hand is that he never is hurt. He's been on the injury list one time. He's never been sent to the injury list with any kind of arm problems ever. So that's usually what you worry about with pitchers. If he's on the injured list, what's his injury? He had an ankle sprain in 2014. It was his only time that he'd ever been to the injured list. So that's how we're going to close out the show today. And I just think the closer situation is up in the air in a lot of teams this year. And of course, we talk about the closer carousel and stuff, and we're going to talk about it more as we get closer to 2021. But this year is especially carousel-y, I think. I feel like there's a lot of teams that the closer by committee is going to be a real thing. It's not just going to be Tampa Bay anymore. It's not just going to be, Atlanta, or some teams are just known for using a closer by committee. But I think it's going to happen more and more as we move forward. And teams just aren't going to be willing to spend what they were willing to spend on Craig Kimbrell a couple years ago, or, Wade Davis, or even Jonathan Papelbon. They're just not willing to spend that much money because, well, you know what happens. I think in general, teams just aren't willing to spend as much money. But that's it. Have a great Saturday. And don't forget, come at noon and you will see the Happy Hour Social Club. They will be here. You won't see them, but you'll hear them on Spreaker. And Beantown Bad Boy will be here running the chat room. And they will be celebrating their 1-year anniversary. It's their 50th show, Happy Hour Social Club. And the grand reopening of the brand new Ironclad Martial Arts facility in Wilmington, Massachusetts.